You're listening to the Jesus Within Us podcast. I'm your host, Mike Oliva. This is my lovely co-host,
Andrea Oliva.
And we are a married couple living out our identity as sons and daughters of the Father, operating under an open heaven. We're grateful that you decided to join us, and we hope that you're blessed by the content.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Jesus Within Us podcast. I am Andrea Oliva, and my handsome co-host.
Oh, Mike Oliva. I'm the handsome co-host.
Yes, you are.
How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we have so many guests lined up this year.
Yes.
It's kind of cool. We've been recording.
Mm-hmm.
We'll drop those episodes as we go, but this episode is going to be kind of fun.
I think so.
We're going to touch on the Sacrament of Marriage. And the way we're going to touch on the Sacrament of Marriage is we're going to kind of share with you guys how Andrea and I met. Big shout outs to Eugene. Eugene asked me, he's like, I want to know the whole story. So we're going to give you guys the whole story. And then we're going to also share something personal too, is like what we chose as our gospel reading from our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of we'll build on that.
Beautiful.
It's kind of exciting. So you want to share the story of how we met?
Yes, I love how you tell this story.
Oh, I asked you if you wanted to share the story.
Oh, I love hearing it from you.
You love hearing it from me.
Yes, you're a good
goodness.
storyteller.
Anyway, so you're really going to make me do this?
Yeah.
All right, well, here we go. And I really wanted to meet someone that shared the faith that I had. Because I had recently came back to the Catholic Church in January of 2020, right before COVID hit.
Right.
So it was a really kind of funny year coming back to the Catholic Church that year because of COVID and everything else. So kind of dating turned to, instead of going places, because, number one, I'm in recovery and I really didn't want to go meet somebody at a bar or somewhere like that. I really was interested in meeting someone, either at church or somewhere,
Right.
So a friend of mine came into my job, and I'm a finance manager, and he's one of the buyers, my bank buyers. And he said, I said, yeah, I'm on this website. I'm dating this girl and this and that. I said, but it's not really going anywhere. And he's like, well, why don't you try Catholic Match? Well, now Catholic Match, if you're listening, it's a perfect opportunity for you to sponsor this podcast. So I said, nah, I don't know about that, bud. I said, he goes, listen, I think it's like, we checked, it's like $89 for 6 months. I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend $89 to join a website for dating,
Yeah.
And he says, listen, if it doesn't work, I'll take care of it. I'll give you back the money. I'm like, bet, we're on. You're on. Do it. So I went on, I filled out my personality test, and they asked you questions like about church teaching and all that stuff, and
personality,
right.
Kind of temperament.
Right. And I didn't know anything about temperaments. I'm just filling out this personality test. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And for the record, I agreed with all the church teachings.
Yes.
But I found, even when I got on the site, that there were so many people that didn't line up biblically.
I know.
Right. With the church teaching. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And, all biblically based, a biblical worldview. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So I noticed the first person, because they kind of showed you like people that may be compatible with you, and you were on there.
Yes.
And I think you had a black and white picture, if I remember. It was like you were at a table. I think later on you said it was the Aubrey Hepburn picture you took. I don't know. But it was kind of funny because you were like 86%
compatible with you. Yes.
Yeah. So I almost got catfished. The first time someone reached out to me through the Catholic Match, and they wanted my number, and they texted, and then I felt like, whoa, wait, something's wrong here. And I'm like, oh man, I was so discouraged.
Yeah.
I was discouraged.
Yeah.
And then I met someone else. I think I sent you a message. Hey, how are you? Because I saw you were from Miami. I'm from Melbourne. So I'm like, okay.
You did, yes.
I think I said, hey, how are you? You never responded, but I hadn't met another girl. Let's just call her. I don't want to let's call her, I don't know.
Vivian.
Yeah, let's call her Vivian. I meet this girl, Vivian, and Vivian's from New Jersey, and she's a recent convert to the Catholic Church, on fire for the Lord. So me and her get to talking. Now, you remember, you don't respond. And so me and her are talking, and we start to FaceTime with each other and everything else like that. And we kind of start to, like, talk. It wasn't like I was like head over heels over or anything, but we started to talk, get to know each other.
How much time had passed here?
It's probably about 10 days.
Okay.
I'm saying about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm going to think. Because then Vivian, we call her Vivian, she says to me, I'm going to be in Florida for my birthday. I'm going down to Hollywood Beach with my friends.
And meanwhile, you were where?
Melbourne.
So how far away is that, more or
2
less?
hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, great. This is awesome. I'll get a hotel, not together, but separately. I get a hotel. I'll meet you down there with your friends. And, we'll get together and see what's going on.
Right.
And that was cool. So I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to go down there. I got my hotel. She's coming down on a certain day. And a couple of red flags kept coming up. And the day before I was supposed to go, there was another red flag that came up. Something about where we were going to go eat. And then when I went and looked at this menu of where we were going to go eat, this menu was like way expensive, like $150 appetizers and, $300 steaks. And listen, if you guys know my background, I'm looking at this as saying, oh boy, these are the high. I'm not about to go down this road again because this is the type of women that I have attracted, in my past. Correct. In my past, even after coming to know the Lord, I had it was time for, it was a lot of inner healing for me to get to the place where you and I had met, at that point.
Right.
So the red flag was there. So I came home that Sunday and I was like, I don't think I'm going to come out. I don't think I'm going to meet this girl. Like, I just don't know if I want to go out there and meet her. And I had came home and I went on Catholic Match. And that's when I got a message from you. Do you remember that?
Yes. So I had been a member of Catholic Match for years and I was not a paying member. And so when I would receive messages, I wasn't able to see the picture of the person that sent me a message, and I wasn't able to see the message either until, I don't remember if it was like 9 days after, then they would let me see it. So meanwhile, I'm thinking like, I don't know, I just had a sense, and again, I couldn't see you, but I just had a sense like, oh, this is different. I don't know why. But then I was able to see it finally, and so I responded. You said something like, hey, how's Miami?
That was my first message I sent and did not receive a response back. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever, just move on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that day you messaged me and I happened to be at the computer. So now we're messaging each other back on Catholic Match.
Yes, I sent you a response and then you responded back right away.
Right.
You could see the little dots, when somebody's like text messaging you back.
Yes.
So yeah, we started a little text conversation.
Yep. And I think I did say, isn't it better if we could talk on the phone or something? I think I gave you my number, and I think you sent me an emoji, text message emoji, but it was a girl with curly hair and praying hands.
Yes.
It's kind of funny. And then finally, like, we're texting back and forth. And then I was like, do you mind if I call you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you picked up the phone, I really mean this. Like, you sound like an angel. Like, you just sounded, I just loved your voice.
Yeah.
Like, just talking to you. You're like, oh, I love your accent.
I did.
And we talked for like 2 hours that night.
We did.
Right? We had a lot in common about the church, the state of the church.
And the world, really.
And the world, right? We talked about Ralph Martin.
About a lot, yeah.
Right? Fulfillment of All Desire.
Yeah.
That was the book you read. I read. It was one of my favorite books I read from Ralph Martin. Big shout out to Ralph Martin, Renewal Ministries. Doesn't know me, but maybe sooner or later.
Well, we did meet him, and we told him.
We did. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And so,
You also did tell me that you were had planned a date with someone.
Quote unquote, Vivian.
Yes.
I did.
You told me, and I was like, okay, well, if it's meant to be, if it's God's will, then, God bless you.
Yeah.
But in my heart of hearts, I was like, I'm not worried.
Yeah. So at that point of the conversation, I'm not even considering like you and I going out. Yeah, well, probably in my mind I am, but I'm also not gonna lie and say, hey, I didn't have this date with this other girl.
Right.
But then I woke up in the morning that morning. This is a funny story. I'm at work. Well, first I call my sister, and I said to my sister Anne-Marie, I said, Anne, listen, I said, I met this girl, quote unquote, Vivian, and I'm supposed to go out to Hollywood, a beach, to meet her for dinner and stuff, but I'm having second thoughts about this because there's a lot of red alerts of ex-girlfriends of mine.
Red flags, yeah.
Big red flags. Big red flags. And so I said, I don't think I'm going to go. And I think I did at that time tell Vivian, listen, I don't think it's a good idea that we meet and all that stuff. And, I kind of, and she, she was like, whatever, like, it wasn't like, I don't think she was upset about it per se. And then I called you.
You did.
At 9 in the morning, and you didn't answer.
I did not.
And then I, when you called me back, what did I say? I think I said, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I dialed you by accident. But by the way, I have, reservations down in Hollywood Beach. Would you like to meet tonight for dinner?
Right. Yeah. You'd let me know that you had canceled
Yes.
with Vivian. But you were interested to see if I wanted to go. Yes.
Yes. And so that's how I went down. And it was so funny because you lived 20 minutes, 25 minutes away from where I was going.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool. And then we met, right? We met at TJF Fridays.
Yeah.
You brought your
Not
friend
your
with you.
$130 appetizer.
Not the $130 appetizer. The whole dinner was like $60.
Yes. I called my friend Evelyn.
Yeah.
Hi, Evelyn. And asked her if she would want to go to dinner with us. And of course she was down for it. So she met us.
So funny. Yeah. And so we, I just remember you pulling up and I saw you and I was like, wow. And I think you even said like, whoa. And I mean, like, we kind of had a connection immediately in the sense of, I was like, wow, she looks even better than she looked in the picture. So be it. And then about a week later, I mean, you came and stayed at Elizabeth's house.
Yeah, that's another God thing.
Right? And Elizabeth's a Carmelite, secular Carmelite, which you are.
Yes,
which is kind of
discalced.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Secular Carmelite.
Yes, discalced Carmelite.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. And so you stayed at her house. You met Father John. That was that week later. And then you stayed at Elizabeth's house. Then you met my parents.
I did.
It's like a week later.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, listen, you get to the point of an age, I think, when you're,
we had lived some life, already. We had already had some experiences, right. And we knew what we wanted. We didn't want to waste each other's time if it wasn't, like our goal. My goal was to date towards marriage, as was your goal.
Yeah.
And so,
my goal was to start courting immediately. If it was going to go anywhere, and if it wasn't, then we need to move on, and
right,
we could part as friends, and that would have been fine,
right?
Yeah. And
ladies, this is just one thing that the Lord helped me with. I guess in the relationships prior to my marriage, when I would meet someone, I would ask the Lord within that first week, Lord, if this is not your will, just let it end. Like, don't let it go any further.
Wow.
And sure enough, like the last like the last guys that I had started talking to, the relationships ended pretty quickly, and it wasn't me ending it. It was them ending it. So I knew, like, that was my confirmation. Okay, that's not the guy for me. So you single ladies out there that are on the dating scene, pray that the Lord will not let your heart be broken when it's not necessary.
Yeah. And my track record was, the girls that I dated, and in the past, it was just a train wreck of relationships, because I wasn't well either. So, like in the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous, they'll say like, two sickies don't make a welly.
Right.
So I had a lot of healing to do.
Me too.
Yeah. No.
Definitely.
So I remember like 2 years before, prior to meeting you, maybe a year and a half, or maybe 2 years before, I just remember this lady prophesying over my life. And she said to me, she says, I feel like the Lord wants you to know that, this girl you're dating now is not the girl for you. That there's a girl that is going to lock arms with you, and you and her are going to be on fire for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
She said,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't believe, and I laughed. Like I was like, oh, well, whoever that's going to be, and I'll pray into that, thanks for the word. I'll pray into it. And lo and behold, I mean, it's fantastic. So 6 weeks later, I proposed, and this is kind of personal, but I proposed in adoration.
Yeah.
At St. Malachi, St. Malachi Church, Catholic Church, in Eucharistic adoration in the adoration chapel.
Yeah.
I got on my knee and I asked you to marry me in front of our blessed Lord.
Yes.
In front of the Blessed Sacrament.
And a lady behind us.
And the lady behind us who was covering her mouth like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Right? This is so beautiful. And then we planned our marriage, we planned our wedding, and we got married literally 6 months and 4 days later after meeting each other on October 30th of 2021.
That's right.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
The sacrament of marriage, the graces that come from that.
Yeah.
There is a grace. This is what I love about being Catholic Christian. We have the 7 sacraments, and they are a means of grace. God is not tied to the sacraments, right? Like, meaning he could operate outside of them, but he also operates within the sacraments and this grace that comes from the marriage.
That's right.
Right. And it's beautiful. And so it brings me to what we chose for our gospel reading for our wedding. So I want to share that with our listeners. Okay. And it's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 21, and then 24 all the way through 27. And it says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise person who built his house upon the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, but it did not fall. But of course it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like the foolish man who built his house upon the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. You know what I love about this?
What?
And the reason why we picked it, and I think you can concur with this, is because Jesus has to be the rock of the marriage.
That's right.
Jesus has to be the center of the marriage.
Yeah.
If I don't have the Lord, I don't have you. If I don't love Jesus more than I love you, right? I can't love you with the love of God.
That's right.
Right?
That's
so I
right.
receive that love from the Father, and then that love projects from me to you. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Coming, and I love it because it was important to me, because being in a relationship with Jesus is more than just saying, I believe in you. Belief, what does believe mean? Right? It means to be obedient. It means to trust in the Lord. Right? So he has to be the center of the marriage. What was it like for you approaching that wonderful day of marriage?
Oh gosh. I was just so grateful, Again, like, I'm not the type of person that likes to be the center of attention. So what I loved about it is that once I got, I walked down the aisle with my dad, and he gave me away, and I was standing next to you. From that point on, it was just you and I and the Lord. I couldn't see anyone behind me. I just saw our Lord in front of us. and you by my side. And that's it. It was beautiful.
Yeah. I've had friends of mine tell me that weren't even, Christian per se, or non-practicing Christians, that said it was such a beautiful, I didn't
Ceremony.
realize how beautiful the Catholic Church does a mass for a marriage and all that, And I'm like, well, we wanted that. Like, we didn't want just to say
that was
nuptials.
right.
We wanted to have the mass because the Eucharist, Jesus giving us his body, blood, soul, and divinity is the center of our faith.
Yes.
It's the food for the journey.
Yeah.
I just love this though, Andrea, because we picked this reading. But if you read the whole reading, because sometimes they'll pick a verse and then they skip 3 verses and then take more. But if you read the full thing, it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you evildoers.'" It shows you that there are people that all of us, are called to go out, right? And live out our identity as sons and daughters. But if it is not built on Christ, right?
Yeah.
That tells me that there will be people out there that will cast out demons.
Yeah.
And they will prophesy. But then the Lord will say, I never knew you.
Right.
And then he goes on to say, and then everyone who hears the words of these mine and does them will be like a wise man. Because he just got done talking about the Sermon on the Mount. So he's given them, this is the way of the king. Right? And so the sacrament of marriage has been a blessing.
Yeah. And I recently found out, my niece told me this recently, that, well, she had been talking to this boy and, she remembered our wedding and said, that's what she wants, which kind of pushed her away from this guy, that it wasn't what she really wanted. And so you just never know, the impact. It was really nice too, because we had a live streaming. And so we were able to share it with other people that weren't able to make it to the wedding. So people in Italy were watching, in Colombia, in New York. It was really, really nice. But I remember when Father John was, I guess, kind of interviewing us separately, remember?
Yeah.
To see where we were.
Right.
You and I both said this to him, and we had no idea we said it. I didn't know you said it. We both said that, like I said, I knew that you loved the Lord more than you would love me, and that's what I wanted. And you said the same thing to him, right?
What has been the biggest challenge for you in marriage?
Huh.
Come, Holy Spirit.
Well, I think the Lord is good. So I lived with my parents for a few years, and I was able to witness firsthand how a marriage, the ups and downs of it, I guess. And, living also with them, with my personality, their personality. So I think the Lord allowed me to kind of grow from that experience. And I always say that you're kind of a mixture of my parents in a way, a little bit. So he was training me. But I don't know. There's always that selfishness that comes, right? You recognize how much selfishness comes out of you. By you, I mean me. Yeah, I think that facing that reality. How about you?
Selfishness. It's been the biggest challenge. I'm selfish. And I realized how selfish I was after we got married. And there was a lot of dying to self. And it was painful. If I could really be honest. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
It was a pain. Sanctification was painful,
Yeah.
right? The purgatorial fires,
Mm.
purgatory right here, the
Mm-hmm.
purifyingness,
Mm-hmm.
of what are my intentions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how I speak to you,
Right.
right? Because it could be uncharitable at times,
Right.
and I got to watch that because
Yeah.
the Bible clearly says by every word,
Yep.
right? You'll be judged by every word that you speak.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. That's a challenge too. I think for us in marriage, which was really beautiful, is we put our finances together immediately.
Oh yeah.
That was a huge deal,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a huge difference for
Well,
us.
yeah, because you weren't really used to that.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
want to do it any other way.
No. Awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
Also, like it's you come first. This is my vocation
Right.
as a husband,
Yeah.
right? And hopefully soon to be a father with I'm already a dad,
Right.
to the boys,
Yeah.
but for us to have our own child as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
but this is my vocation.
Yeah.
So it's hard
Mm.
growing into the vocation.
Yeah.
It's new to me, right? Because you and I had taken that time to really, really think about what are we getting ourselves into,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The sacrament of marriage, the covenant. We have a covenant
Mm-hmm.
together before God.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. In the Catholic Church,
Right.
there's steps, right, that you take. I don't know if in other.
Well, I mean, in other churches, you'll go to like counseling and stuff,
Right.
like that. We do the same. The Catholic Church does.
Yeah. So there's focus,
Right.
which is when you're engaged, and
Right.
then you go to pre-Cana.
Right.
But we had talked about a lot of things before we even got to that point. Again, because we're older, like I already knew the things that had worked in the past and hadn't worked. So I had a lot of questions for you. And you had answers, for that. So yeah, we really had that conversation. We weren't playing around.
No, and it's beautiful, and that's why I love like this gospel reading for our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about that he who builds his house on the rock.
Right.
Like we have to build the marriage. Anything that happens, we have to build on Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus has to be the rock.
Mm-hmm.
I heard someone say today, like sometimes we can get so caught up in doing things for God instead of doing things with God.
Mm-hmm.
So are we doing this podcast with God, or are we doing this podcast for God? Ooh.
That's good. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had to kind of like, wow. Someone said that. I'm like, that's good.
And I think in marriage too, like sometimes when there's a argument, it's easy to forget that it's you and me against the world, right?
Right.
Versus you against me.
Because the enemy could actually plant seeds of discord within the marriage.
Yeah. So you forget we're on the same team.
Yeah. And then and that's one thing I had to recognize too. Because a lot of times from my past relationships, again, bringing brokenness into the marriage.
Yeah.
There's brokenness there because of past relationships.
Past experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Lack of trust, stuff like that.
Wounds, traumas,
wounds. Right. Because I wasn't the best companion. Let's just put it that way without getting into too much. I wasn't the best companion to the women I dated.
Right.
Right. And you taught me, what you teach me in marriage is important because you showed me this selfless love that I've never seen from somebody. And so when you look at me and you talk to me, so I it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's beautiful. Come Holy Spirit. But I see the eyes of Christ looking at me in this grace-filled moments that I have with you. And you're so loving and so caring, even how you are with the children, in your profession and the way you are in the ministry. And the greatest thing about all this too is like we're in ministry together. Like we are in ministry together. Like Andrea and I kind of have decided that if we ever went out on speaking engagements, or I did, that we go together. Like I have no business being out on the road without my wife. I'm just saying. left to my own devices, not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, we're a good team.
Good
It's you and
conversation.
me against the world.
For God's people.
That's right.
I love it. Well, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this little chit chat that Andrea and I had.
I did.
So did I. It was kind of fun. Reminiscing over the time we met and our marriage. And
we should watch our video.
Yeah, we look real. We should watch our marriage video. We have a marriage video. It's on YouTube. So maybe I could put that in the link and maybe you guys could check it out.
Well, you can ask for it if you want to.
Oh, you could ask for it. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I hope you're blessed by the content. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you that you may know the goodness and greatness of God.
Amen.